Linda and Spencer didn't even get along when they were little, so their dislike for each other lasted for years and even decades. The most surprising thing was that they were actually siblings. It was usually Spencer who started the fights because he was a headstrong young man who wanted to get ahead in life at the expense of others. Meanwhile, Linda was a sweet and complacent young woman who believed in the power of goodness and justice. She never outright insulted her brother during their fights. On the contrary, she always tried to deal with any situation calmly. Thus, as she was waiting for Spencer to arrive that day, Linda gave herself a mental order to avoid getting into a fight with her brother at any cost. Moreover, the reason for their meeting was very sad, which was why Linda couldn't hold back her tears. The fact was that their mother had died 2 weeks ago. She fought cancer for several years. Unfortunately, the disease turned out to be stronger than Pamela Roberts, and the woman passed away 2 days before her own birthday. Pamela's personal life wasn't great, and the woman had to raise her kiddos all alone. Linda and Spencer knew virtually nothing about their father, as their late mother tried to avoid talking about him at all times. By the time she was diagnosed with cancer, Spencer was already living in another town, and therefore Linda was the one who had to take on the responsibilities of their mother's treatment and care. But the woman never complained and looked after her mother with love and care. But Spencer simply didn't have time for any of this, as he constantly moved from place to place, unable to stay in one location for longer than 2 years. Spencer was always attracted to big money, which in his opinion could only be earned in the big city. However, the young man seemed to have forgotten about the fact that the city himself couldn't give him anything, and that it was who he had to work with to achieve anything in his life. Linda was used to her brother's antics and tried not to pay any attention to them. It was always a mystery to her how her brother even managed to start a family given his lifestyle. When their mother died, Linda was the one who had to make all of the funeral arrangements and hold the wake. Meanwhile, Spencer didn't even find time to come and say goodbye to his mother. And now, 2 weeks later, he called his sister up and arranged a visit. Of course, Linda suspected what her brother wanted to talk to her about, but she tried not to focus on it in order not to ruin her mood. The only thing that Spencer actually cared about was the inheritance Pamela Roberts left for her children. That was the main difference between the two siblings. While Spencer was coming up with the plan to get his hands on their mother's house, Linda was grieving the loss of the one who'd passed away before her time. The young woman would be willing to give every cent she had only for her mother to be able to live again, and no inheritance could change her mind. But Spencer didn't share his sister's views. Actually, the only reason he ever wanted to see his sister was to clear up the inheritance issue and get his hands on the house as soon as possible. "Hello, Spencer. It's good to see you," Linda said with a smile. Spencer gave her a forced smile and muttered something unintelligible in response. The truth was that the young man came to town 2 days earlier in order to finish some interesting business with the documents, which could change the situation as a whole. Spencer knew that Linda was single, and therefore she didn't really need the house. Truth be told, Spencer didn't want the house either. All he was interested in was the money he could get from selling it. The fact was that the site of Pamela's house would be perfect for building a nice mansion overlooking the river, if someone had the time and the money to do it. Linda had already gotten many offers, but the woman rejected them all. She cared about the house as a memory of her mother, who did everything to ensure that her children had a roof over their heads. Spencer, on the other hand, was only interested in money. All that the young man talked about in the car was the inheritance. He didn't even ask how his sister was doing. At first, Linda didn't pay much attention to her brother's comments and didn't think that he'd actually do anything but talk about it. But when Spencer suggested that they should go see a lawyer, the woman's heart sank. "I thought we were going to the cemetery to visit Mom's grave," the woman whispered with tears in her eyes. "We should take care of business first, and then everything else," Spencer replied calmly. It was only when they were at the lawyer's office that Linda realized that her brother had tricked her. No one knew how he managed to do it, but it was clear that Spencer had forged the documents. Linda was confident that her mother couldn't have forgotten all about her own daughter and left the house to her brother. Given that Linda was with her mother at the time of her death, holding her hand and reading a prayer, she couldn't believe that her mother would simply leave her out of the will. The woman was so shocked that she simply didn't know what to say. Meanwhile, the lawyer finished reading their mother's will, after which he congratulated Spencer on his inheritance. The official reading passed so quickly that for a moment there, Linda even felt like she imagined it all. But when the woman was asked to sign the documents, she realized that it was all really happening. It was Spencer's moment, which he'd been working on for a very, very long time. Of course, he wasn't going to renovate his late mother's house or move into it. All he wanted to do was sell it and make good money. When Linda asked her brother not to sell the house, he replied, "In case you forgot, I have a family to feed, and you're on your own. Why would you need this house?" Hearing her brother voice the harsh truth made Linda tear up. Yes, the woman was all alone, but that didn't mean that she should be thrown out on the street. In the meantime, Spencer was determined to throw out all the rubbish from the house and prepare it for sale. "But all of Mom's things are here. Her photographs. What are you going to do with them?" Linda asked with tears in her eyes. "If you care so much about them, you can take them. I don't care. Take whatever you want and I'll throw out the rest. I'm sorry, but I need to put the house in order so I can get a good deal on it. If you don't get in my way, I'll give you some money to rent an apartment," Spencer answered with a deadpan tone. But Linda had no intention of throwing her mother's things out. She carefully collected all the photographs and put them in a bag. Suddenly, Linda noticed her mother's old boots, which she used to wear when she was young. It's hard to say why her mother never threw them away. Mrs. Roberts probably liked their comfortable fit, good leather, and durable, stable heel. "They're so cute." Linda was amazed and immediately tried them on. "What are you doing? Are you really going to wear this junk?" Spencer laughed at his sister. But Linda didn't care. For some inexplicable reason, she wanted to keep her mother's boots. It was fall, so the weather would get chilly soon, and they could really come in handy. The only thing that upset the woman was the missing top piece on one of the heels. "I should take it to a shop to get it fixed," the woman thought and put her boots aside. Linda decided not to put things off and went to the shoe shop the very next day. The experienced shoemaker examined that boot and shook his head respectfully, after which he said, "Don't go far, miss. It won't take long." But before Linda could even step outside, the shoemaker asked her to come back. "Miss, I don't know how to tell you, but these aren't some ordinary boots. Do you understand? They actually have hollow space inside the heel. Just come and see for yourself," the shoemaker said. When Linda stepped closer, she saw that the heel of her mother's boots really was a cleverly disguised hiding place. Inside it, there was a folded piece of paper covered with cellophane. "Here, take a look. I didn't open it without you because it's none of my business." The shoemaker felt a bit uncomfortable. When Linda unrolled the paper, she saw that it was a note written in her mother's handwriting. There was only one word: find. Next, there was a drawing of a small map. Linda easily recognized the location of the rooms in the house. There was an arrow drawn by the fireplace, pointing to a spot on the wall next to it. "Look from behind the woman's back," the shoemaker said. "I could be wrong, of course, but it seems like something very important could be hidden there." Linda understood that her mother wouldn't just hide a note in the heel of her boots for no good reason. She probably knew that her son would get his hands on the house, and therefore decided to play it safe and leave a note for her daughter. Of course, Linda could have just thrown the boots away, but Pamela Roberts felt in her heart that her daughter wouldn't do that. Linda found the spot in the wall without much difficulty. There was a small niche with a wooden box hidden behind the wallpaper. Linda took the box and felt that it was rather heavy, which meant that it definitely wasn't empty. When the young woman opened the box, she gasped in surprise. There were many gold rings and other jewelry inside it. The most surprising thing was that their amount significantly exceeded the value of the house itself. Linda didn't know where her mother got this box from. It was most likely the inheritance she got from her grandmother. At first, Linda didn't want to tell her brother about her find. But then she realized that she couldn't do it and told Spencer everything. The man's indignation knew no bounds. "Do you intend to keep all the jewelry for yourself? But it belongs to both of us." Linda smiled and then said, "No, brother, it belongs to me. You tricked me and got the house and wanted to leave me with nothing, but thanks to our mother, we're even now." At that moment, Spencer was ready to literally incinerate Linda with his eyes. In a fit of rage, the man kicked his sister out of the house. Moreover, he advised her to never cross the threshold of this house again. A month passed. Linda sold some of the jewelry and used the proceeds to rent a small house in a good neighborhood. As for Spencer, things didn't go all that well for him. The forgery he committed was discovered during his attempt to sell the house, so now he couldn't do it. Since he wasn't the rightful owner of the house, he needed Linda's consent to sell it. Having realized that there was no scamming his way out of his predicament, the man gave up on the idea of selling the house and went back to his family. Linda used the rest of the money to renovate the house so that it would stand there for many more years, reminding everyone of Pamela Roberts, who made sure that her children had a place to live in their old age.